So I grew up on Tyendinaga Mohawk territory, which is a small Mohawk reserve. So as you can guess, there's like a very small Jewish community on the reserve, which included myself and my 3 siblings, and of course my mom. So growing up, I didn't have a lot of Judaism in my life. We celebrated Hanukkah, and that was about it. I also actually attended a Jewish overnight camp in California for 2 weeks, which was really interesting. But again, like, I wasn't familiar with any of those traditions or anything they were doing there, so for me I felt kind of like a little bit like an outsider, like I didn't know. But other than that, I wasn't involved in Judaism growing up. It wasn't until this school year that I got involved. Well, I met Vicki Frank last year, and you know, we were both in a class together and we started talking, and it both came up that we were both Jewish, and I was planning on doing birthright, and she was telling me about how she did it and how much fun she had. And you know, she kept bugging me. She's like, oh, I go to Chabad on campus, like, you know, I go every Friday night for Shabbat dinner, you have to come, it's so much fun, like, you'll meet so many people. And I kept telling her, like, okay, yeah, one Friday I'll come, one Friday I'll come. And of course I never went. I think it was probably because I was a little bit nervous, again, feeling like maybe a bit of an outsider. But in the summer, I got to go to Birthright and go to Israel, and I had like the time of my life. It was so much fun, and it was so inspirational, and it was really like a spiritual growth for me. So when I came back to Ottawa this September, I ran into Vicki again, and she told me about Sinai Scholars and how I could, you know, go learn about Judaism and how much fun I would really have. And you're going to meet a lot of people, so I decided to sign up because I thought there was no harm in doing it, and learning about Judaism would be interesting. After signing up, Rabbi Haim, he invited me to Shabbat dinner that Friday night, and I was really nervous because I didn't know anyone, but I ended up coming, and I met Rabbi Haim and Yocheved and all their kids and everyone there. And that night they told me about different programs they offered, and one of them included the Bar and Bat Mitzvah they do every year for students who never had one. And after applying and signing up, I've just been introduced to so many other programs and so many opportunities, and have met so many great, caring, loving people, and I've made so many Jewish friends that I've never had in the past. And it's been a really great experience, and I'm so happy that I had the opportunity to get involved in that. When I think back to who first inspired me to get involved on campus with Judaism, it would probably have to be my grandfather, Ronald Stackler. When I told him that I was going to Ottawa U for school, he told me, you have to get involved with Chabad on campus. My Chabad knows people in Ottawa who can get you involved, and he was so excited, and he really pushed me to go. And again, I was kind of like, okay, like, you know, told him I would think about it. And at first I didn't really think much about it initially, until I actually met someone who was involved, and you know, they did tell me, like, no, it is everything your grandfather's saying. You have to get involved. You're gonna love it. You're gonna meet people. You're gonna learn. You're gonna be educated, and you're just gonna have the time of your life. I really like Shabbat, and I love coming to the Chabad every Friday, and I'm gonna try my best to make it there every Friday night and incorporate it into my life.
So I grew up on Vancouver Island, BC, in a small town, and my family, my mom's Jewish, my dad doesn't really have a religious association, and I grew up celebrating Hanukkah, lighting the candles, and we had Passover at my grandparents' house. My grandfather also not Jewish, and so we were raised celebrating those things, and we were taught about what it all meant, but it wasn't really a big part of our lives. It was kind of like, this is a thing that that is part of you, but that's it. And we didn't really spend time with other Jewish families or go to any community Jewish things. So I was raised aware that I was Jewish, but not really partaking in the Jewish community. It was all through high school, and then I spent 4 years in Boston, Massachusetts, at university there, when I still was not partaking in any Jewish anything. I think there was a Chabad house in Boston, but I used to see the sign, but I didn't even know what Chabad meant at that time. And in those 4 years, it's funny now when I tell people from that part of my life that I am Jewish and that I'm having a bar mitzvah and things like that. Yeah, they say you're Jewish, and it makes me realize that there was 4 years of my life when I just didn't tell anyone that I was Jewish, not because I was ashamed of it or anything. It just never came up. So then eventually I went to Israel and I played basketball there for 2 weeks. It was an unbelievable experience. And after spending all that time with all these other Jewish people, I kind of realized that this thing that I knew was a part of me, this fact that I was Jewish, was more than just a thing that we would light candles for once a year. It was a whole community and a whole culture. And I've never really been a religious person, but that time that I spent in Israel made me realize that being Jewish is so much more than a religion. And so that was a really big awakening for me. And I came back from Israel, and I was feeling pretty Jewish, and I was at Carleton, and there was this guy, all dressed like Chaim, and I walked out of the student center, and I don't remember the guy's name, but he said to me, he was just asking people as they came out of the student center, are you Jewish? And I came out of the student, I was feeling pretty Jewish because I just came back from Israel. And this guy says, are you Jewish? And I said, yeah, I'm Jewish. And he asked for my email address, and I was like, this is kind of weird, but okay, here, yeah, like, I want to meet some other Jewish people, this is okay. And I eventually got an email from Chaim, and then I never really followed up, and it kind of died there. And then I was in Los Angeles for work, and there was a girl that I had met in Israel who invited me to her house for Shabbat dinner. And I accepted, and I went, and they were very observant, and they were saying prayers, and they were doing all these different things, and I had no idea what to do. And so when I came back from Los Angeles, I called Chaim and I said, listen, I need to start learning about being Jewish. And that's kind of how it all started. Since then, I've been meeting with Chaim once a week for almost 2 years now, I think. Before, I've always known that being Jewish was a part of me. It was a thing that's been part of my family for however many generations. And knowing that a bar mitzvah is something that Jewish men have, I just jumped at the opportunity. Considering that I'm embracing my Jewish heritage and that I have been doing so, it seemed like an appropriate thing to do. Definitely the Shabbat dinners while I was still going were great, and I think that the most valuable thing that I took away from each one of those was that there would always be new people there each night. And I saw this when I was in Los Angeles visiting the girl that I mentioned before as well, where when a Jewish person walks into the home of a Jewish person, I don't think that I've ever seen anything so welcoming, and it's just a beautiful thing.
I grew up in Barhaven, pretty close to the Barhaven Chabad. So I remember pretty young, like when I was 4, seeing some Chabad people walk to the shul. And I asked my mom, I was like, who are these people? And like, why are they dressed funny? And she said, like they're Hasidic Jews, and that's how they observe Judaism. And I thought, oh, that's cool. And my mom mentioned in passing, she's like, well, technically you're Jewish. And I sort of just stored that away in the back of my mind. I didn't really have any connection to Judaism because I practiced a different religion. So like I knew I was like sort of Jewish, but didn't really fit in with the other Jews, for lack of a better word. And we'd celebrate Passover at my aunt's house, but even then I still didn't really feel Jewish. Well, I remember being at my grandmother's place for Shabbos, and she would light Shabbos candles, and I always thought it was like really beautiful. And I thought, oh, that's like interesting that she practices Judaism. And when I was 19, I never had a bris, and I realized like, oh, maybe I should have a bris. And I know a lot of people would not do that, but it's something I felt very strongly about. And I got in touch with the Barhaven Chabad. I said I'd never like had a bris, like how do I go about getting one? And they got me in touch with Rabbi Chaim, who's the campus rabbi. And he started calling me every now and then, and he explained to me how it doesn't really matter what I believe, I have a Jewish soul. And his house was very hospitable when I went there, and I was hooked on the cholent. Well, like other forms of Judaism had told me, like, you're not a Jew because you believe in Jesus. And over time, I lost faith in Jesus, but I still like have a strong Jewish identity. And Rabbi Chaim was pretty essential in instilling that sense of Jewish identity. I got a Jewish name at Bar Mitzvah. I went through with the bris about a year after my Jewish grandfather had passed away. He was an atheist, but on his deathbed he said he believes in God. And even going to a Jewish funeral gave me a strong sense of Jewish identity. And so one of my names, Matisyahu, my full name is Yarden Abraham Matisyahu. My grandfather was like Ben Abraham, and his last name was Matthias, so I chose Matisyahu in his memory. And so getting called up for the Torah is kind of like a reminder of my history, the history of the Jewish people. And reading from the Torah wasn't a requirement for the Bar Mitzvah Gala, but the Torah is like the foundation of the Jewish people, I think. And so reading it without the vowels in the original language just had a lot of personal significance for me. I'm getting more involved sometimes, coming Shabbat dinners and keeping some mitzvahs. Like Rabbi Chaim got me some tefillin. I plan on putting that on every now and then, and have a mezuzah I hang. So stuff I wouldn't have done before, and that I'm proud to do now because I'm Jewish and I identify that way.
I grew up in Outremont, which is known as I would say, a famous Jewish neighborhood in Montreal. I actually grew up between two houses of a Jewish family. I was always a bit, I was curious. There was always an element of curiosity, you know, how it is working at their place. I remember they always came to our place to ask us to shut the lights for Shabbat. No, but I always kind of knew that my grandmother is Jewish. No, she wasn't very Orthodox. She still is pretty hippie, but it was always for me a great element of curiosity. How do typical Jewish family, how it works. My mom used to light candles. Other than that, not really. No Shabbat. Few holidays, Yom Kippur, I was aware of them. Rosh Hashanah, but celebrating them, I still have lots of Jewish friends, but that would, I guess I never was invited to a bar mitzvah, so I never had friends who celebrated their bar mitzvah. Mainly my other Jewish friends are also not very involved in, they never had the bar mitzvah. My family doctor introduced me to Rabbi Moshe Krasnansky, which I'm very thankful for it. Almost every week I went to visit the rabbi at the Chabad house in TMR, and for about an hour every week we just spoke about, he explained to me some stories, the meaning of some religious events that were taking place, Purim, And yes, I just had some questions about the practice of Jewish holidays or just Jewish customs. To Ottawa, it was a new city for me. I was alone, and maybe I just needed a community, people I could relate to. In a certain way, a family away from family. I met the rabbi on a Wednesday of September, and he was there with his red beard. And just from the beginning, he was a friend, without any boundaries or any formal distance. He was a friend. So that's very good to me. And since then, to be honest, it brings a great amount of joy in my heart to see the rabbi and to come to Shabbat on Fridays. I really love the opening of the Torah on Yom Kippur. It felt good. It felt profound. I felt it through my soul. It's Etienne, but I had to choose a Jewish name. So I chose the name of Yaakov Chaim. Yaakov, why? Because it's the name of my father. He passed away when I was 5, so I wanted to keep that name. And Chaim, because well, it's the rabbi's name, and also it means life. So I wanted to put the element of life into the name of my deceased father. I think I do want to explore more the spirituality of Jewish religion. First, because it is very rich, but also for my own purpose. Because I like to think and I like to discuss, to question. So in that way I will explore my spirituality through my Jewish roots.
I didn't go to Jewish school, so I wasn't really around a lot of Jewish kids who had bat mitzvahs. So I never really felt like I had necessarily missed out, but as I've become more interested in Judaism and really connected to my Jewish roots over the past year to 2 years, I think it's just a really important thing to do to have a bat mitzvah, to sort of symbolize becoming a woman. And we learned on Snorkel and Study the symbolism of having a bat mitzvah, what it means to become a Jewish woman, and I guess down the road to also be a Jewish mother. So I think that's part of the reason why it's important for me to have a bat mitzvah now. I've been involved with more Jewish activities over the past few years. I was a camp counselor at the JCC here in Ottawa, and then I went to Israel this past summer, and from that I became friends with some people that live in Ottawa who are now my friends and who I regularly go to Chabad and Hillel events. And so we kind of always go together to events, and just having that Jewish connection and that Jewish foundation in which we can relate to each other. And I started to do some Jewish studying through Sinai scholars, and I also went on Snorkel and Study, and now a women's group led by Yocheved, and just learning about different stories in the Torah and the meanings behind certain customs and traditions and holidays, and what they mean to us, and what we can use those lessons in our everyday life. And that's really impacted me the most from studying. My grandmother, who we call Nonna, she has since passed away, but I definitely went to synagogue a lot with her, and it was just sort of spiritual in her own way and really connected to Judaism and very traditional, and I always felt very close to how she expressed her Judaism and her values and what she had taught, and she had a lot of wisdom which she passed on. So she's the person I cite as being the most influential. The lessons behind a lot of what the Torah says, I think, is very applicable to everyday life, and I think has made me a little bit more grounded over the past few years. And just your outlook on life changes a little bit as you take little parts that really mean something to you from the different Torah teachings and different stories. I think knowing about the holidays and other traditions and the meanings behind them makes me more interested to continue with them and to learn more about them and to practice them in my everyday life. And I see that continuing on in the future.